The text message arrived while I was sitting in the surgical waiting room, watching the red CRGRI in pearl radius light that held my son's life behind it. My phone buzzed against the plastic chair, and I almost ignored it, but something made me look. Margaret, mother-in-law, we needed the money more. You'll thank us later when you see what we did for the family. Stop being selfish, Victoria. My hands trembled as I read it 3 times, trying to make sense of the words. What money? What had she done? Before I could respond, another text came through, this time from my sister-in-law, Bethany. Bethany, Mom says you're probably freaking out, but honestly, Jacob won't need all that stuff if the surgery doesn't work anyway. We got $30,000 for everything. Better than letting it collect dust. The world tilted. I stood up so fast my purse hit the floor, spilling its contents across the waiting room's worn carpet. An elderly man tried to help me gather my things, but I was already running toward the elevator. Ma'am, you can't leave. A nurse called after me. My son's equipment. I gasped. I need to check. I'll be right back. Please, if anything happens. I'll page you, she said, seeing something in my face that made her stop arguing. The elevator ride to the parking garage felt eternal. My 8-year-old son Jacob was in surgery to correct a spinal issue that had left him partially paralyzed 2 years ago. We'd spent everything, sold our house, emptied our savings, took on crushing debt to get him the best equipment. The custom wheelchair alone cost $35,000. The standing frame, the specialized communication device for when his hands wouldn't cooperate, the adaptive technology that let him attend school remotely on bad days. Altogether, nearly $50,000 worth of equipment that insurance have fought us on every single item. Equipment that was supposed to be locked in our specialized van in the hospital parking garage. I found our parking spot and stopped dead. The van was there, but the back doors were open. Empty. The lock had been cut with bolt cutters. Even Jacob's backup manual wheelchair, the one we kept for emergencies, was gone. My phone rang. Margaret. How dare you get security involved? She screeched before I could speak. Where FAMI? You stole from my paralyzed son during his surgery, I said, my voice deadly calm. While he's fighting for a chance to walk again, you stole the equipment he needs to survive. Stole? I have a key. You gave me a key for emergencies. Medical emergencies, not for you, Toe. I stopped. Security? What security? Don't play dumb. That security chief already came to the house. We're not talking to him without a lawyer. I hung up and ran back to the hospital's main entrance. At the security desk, a tall man with kind eyes and silver hair was reviewing something on multiple monitors. Excuse me, I started. He looked up, and his expression softened. Mrs. Reeves? Victoria Reeves? Yes, how did you? Your van was broken into on our property. We've been reviewing footage for the past hour. I'm Chief Davidson. I was about to come find you, but I understand your son is in surgery. My mother-in-law said you came to her house? His expression darkened. Ma'am, why don't you sit down? What I'm about to show you, it's going to be hard to watch. He turned one of the monitors toward me. The timestamp showed 7:47 a.m., 13 minutes after Jacob had been wheeled into surgery. The black and white footage showed my van clearly. A silver SUV pulled up beside it. Margaret climbed out of the passenger side, followed by Bethany and her husband Derek. I watched in horror as they used a key to open the van. Then Derek returned with bolt cutters for the additional locks we'd installed inside. They worked efficiently, like they'd planned it. Margaret directed them, pointing at different equipment. The custom wheelchair came out first, then the standing frame, folded down. The communication device, the portable ramp, even the special cushions designed to prevent pressure sores. There's more, Chief Davidson said quietly, switching to another camera angle. This one showed them at what looked like a medical supply store. We have connections with most medical equipment dealers in the area. When items this specialized show up, they're supposed to verify ownership. The new footage showed them unloading everything at Cash 4 Medical Supplies, a place I recognized from the shadier side of town. No questions asked, cash on the spot. The dealer called us when he ran the serial numbers and they came up as flagged. Davidson continued. You registered all this equipment, didn't you? I nodded, unable to speak. 2 years ago, after Jacob's accident, a social worker had suggested registering everything with serial numbers in case of theft. I thought she was paranoid. Good news is, we've already recovered everything. It's being held as evidence. Bad news is, he pulled out another form. This is organized theft of medical equipment valued over $10,000. That's a federal crime. Add in the fact that it was stolen from a minor with disabilities during a medical procedure. Federal crime? I whispered. I need to ask, do you want to press charges? I know their family, but... My phone buzzed. Another text from Margaret. Your father-in-law says we'll give you $5,000 to drop this nonsense. That's more than fair. I showed Davidson the text. His eyebrows rose. Ma'am, that's attempting to bribe a witness. If you'll excuse me, I need to make a call. He stepped away, phone already at his ear. I heard fragments. FBI, medical equipment, disabled minor, attempting to bribe. I sat there, numb, staring at the footage still playing on loop. Bethany laughing as she loaded Jacob's walker. Derek carelessly tossing the communication device that had taken 6 months to customize for Jacob's specific needs. Margaret directing it all like some twisted conductor. Mrs. Reeves? A nurse appeared at my elbow. Your son is out of surgery. The doctor wants to speak with you. I jumped up, the investigation suddenly secondary. Is he? He did beautifully. The surgeon will explain everything, but it went even better than hoped. I followed her on shaking legs, tears streaming down my face. Jacob was okay. The surgery worked. Everything else could wait. Dr. Patel met me outside recovery, still in his surgical scrubs. Mrs. Reeves, I have excellent news. We were able to decompress the nerves completely. With physical therapy and his equipment, Jacob has an excellent chance of regaining significant mobility. Maybe not full recovery, but certainly much more independence than he has now. His equipment, I said, and suddenly I was sobbing. They stole his equipment. While you were operating, they stole everything. Dr. Patel's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, then rage. Who stole medical equipment from a paralyzed child? My husband's family. They needed money. I'll be right back, he said tightly. Don't move. 20 minutes later, I was sitting beside Jacob's bed in recovery, holding his small hand and watching him sleep off the anesthesia, when Chief Davidson returned with 2 other people, a woman in an FBI windbreaker and a man in a suit. Mrs. Reeves, I'm Agent Sarah Martinez with the FBI's Healthcare Fraud Unit. This is Assistant U.S. Attorney James Wright. We take theft of medical equipment very seriously, especially when it involves disabled children. I don't understand why the FBI. Your mother-in-law crossed state lines to sell the equipment, Agent Martinez explained. The dealer they sold to ships internationally, plus the value exceeds $50,000, and it's specialized medical equipment for a minor. This falls under several federal statutes. A.J. Wright leaned forward. We've already arrested Margaret, Bethany, and Derek Reeves. They're being processed now. But I need to ask, were there any warning signs? Any previous incidents? I thought about the last 2 years, the snide comments about wasting money on a lost cause, the suggestions that we should let nature take its course instead of fighting for Jacob's recovery, the time Bethany had asked if Jacob's equipment would be up for grabs if he didn't make it. They never wanted us to get him treatment, I said quietly, said we were being selfish, spending Jacob's college fund on medical care. My husband. I stopped, realizing. Oh God, I need to call Thomas. He's driving back from a work trip. He doesn't know. We'll need to speak with him too, Wright said. But first, can you document any previous threats or concerning behavior? I pulled out my phone, scrolling through 2 years of messages I'd never deleted. The guilt trips about money. The suggestions that Jacob would be better off without interventions. The time Margaret had called CPS claiming we were medically abusing Jacob by pursuing treatment. Agent Martinez photographed everything. This establishes a pattern. They didn't just steal equipment, they've been trying to deny this child medical care for years. A small voice interrupted us. Mommy. Jacob's eyes were fluttering open, confused and groggy. I squeezed his hand. I'm here, baby. The surgery went perfectly. You did so good. Did I? Can I walk? The doctor says with therapy, you're going to do amazing things. We'll work hard, okay. He smiled sleepily. With my standing frame? And my wheels. I glanced at the agents who nodded. Yes, baby, with all your equipment, everything's going to be fine. As Jacob drifted back to sleep, Chief Davidson's phone rang. He stepped out, returning with a grim expression. That was the medical supply store. Turns out your in-laws weren't first-time sellers. They've been bringing in smaller items for months, supplies, medications. Always claimed they were from a deceased relative. My stomach lurched. I've been wondering where Jacob's backup supplies kept disappearing to. Extra catheters, specialized grips for his utensils, the expensive pressure relief cushions. We'll need an inventory of everything that's gone missing, Martinez said. This is bigger than just today's theft. The next hours blurred together. Thomas arrived, white-faced and shaking with rage when he learned what his family had done. The police photographed Jacob's empty equipment closet at home. The FBI seized records from the medical supply store showing dozens of transactions, all Jacob's supplies sold off piece by piece. The worst part came when we reviewed our security cameras at home. Footage showed Margaret using her emergency key to enter while we were at Jacob's therapy appointments, loading supplies into bags. In one video, she was on the phone, clearly laughing. The audio was faint but audible. They buy so much junk for that kid, they'll never notice. It's practically charity, giving this stuff to people who can actually use it. By evening, the charges had multiplied. Grand theft, trafficking stolen medical equipment, conspiracy, fraud. Elder abuse charges were added when they found evidence Margaret had been doing the same thing to other families in her church, volunteering to help with disabled relatives and then stealing their supplies. I sat in Jacob's hospital room that night, watching him sleep. The surgery had been a success, but he'd need months of therapy, all with the equipment his own family had tried to steal. Thomas sat across from me, his head in his hands. I'm so sorry, he kept saying. I knew they were cold about Jacob, but I never thought. God, Vic, they could have killed him. If he'd come out of surgery with no equipment. But he didn't, I said firmly. We caught them, he's going to be okay. My mother called you selfish, while you were sitting here, terrified, waiting to know if our son would ever walk again. She was stealing from him and calling you selfish. A knock on the door interrupted us. Dr. Patel entered with Agent Martinez. I'm sorry to interrupt, the agent said, but I wanted to update you. All three of them are being held without bail. The judge considered them flight risks and dangers to the community, especially given the vulnerability of their victims. All three? I asked. 4, actually. We just arrested the medical supply store owner too. He knew the equipment was stolen, had a whole system for moving it overseas. Your in-laws were just one of his suppliers. Dr. Patel spoke up. I've also been in touch with the hospital's legal team. We're prepared to testify about the medical impact of denying a child necessary equipment. What they did wasn't just theft. It was attempted murder by medical neglect. After they left, Thomas and I sat in silence, processing everything. Our son was going to be okay. His equipment would be returned. The people who tried to hurt him were in custody. But the betrayal, that would take longer to heal. You know what the worst part is? Thomas said suddenly. Mom always said she loved Jacob. Said she was just being practical about his chances. But you don't steal from someone you love. You don't take away their lifeline while they're fighting for their life. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Aunt Linda, Margaret's sister. Just heard what happened. I'm horrified but not surprised. She did the same thing when my husband had cancer. Stole his pain meds to sell. We have evidence if you need it. I showed Thomas. He wasn't surprised. There's probably more. Mom always had money for shopping trips, but Dad's on a fixed income. I should have questioned it. Over the next week, as Jacob began his recovery, the case against his grandparents grew. More victims came forward. Families from their church, neighbors, even a cousin whose daughter had cerebral palsy. All had stories of missing equipment, supplies that vanished, Margaret's helpful visits that coincided with thefts. The trial was set for 6 months out. In the meantime, Jacob came home to a house we had to completely re-secure. New locks, new security system, cameras everywhere. His equipment room now had a biometric lock. The day he took his first assisted steps with his new walker, one of the items his grandmother had stolen and sold, I filmed it. His joy, his determination, his pride. This was what they tried to take from him. Not just equipment, but hope. Not just things, but futures. Margaret wrote me a letter from jail. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. Victoria, it read, "You've destroyed our family over things. Material possessions that insurance probably covered anyway. Was it worth it? Was your pride worth taking grandparents away from that boy? We were trying to help you see reality. Some children aren't meant to be saved. The money you waste on Jacob could help normal children. You'll understand one day that we were right." I saved the letter for the trial. The prosecutor said it would help show lack of remorse. Jacob is 10 now. He walks with assistance, uses his wheelchair for longer distances, and is the top student in his class. He knows his grandparents are in prison but doesn't know the full details. Someday I'll tell him how while he was fighting for his life on an operating table, they were stealing his future and selling it for cash. But I'll also tell him how the system worked. How good people, Chief Davidson, Agent Martinez, Dr. Patel, fought for him. How the FBI takes protecting disabled children seriously. How his equipment was returned, his future restored, and justice served. Margaret got 15 years. Bethany and Derek got 10 each. The medical supply dealer got 25. They all have to pay restitution, though will likely never see a penny. But Jacob has what he needs. He has his equipment, his chance at independence, and parents who will fight anyone who tries to take that away. Even, especially, family who believed he was worth less than $30,000 in cash. The security footage from that day sits in an FBI evidence locker somewhere. Proof that sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones causing harm. But also proof that someone is always watching, that justice delayed isn't always justice denied, and that stealing from the vulnerable has consequences. Jacob asked me once why we don't visit Grandma anymore. I told him simply, sometimes people show you who they really are. When they do, you believe them. He nodded, wise beyond his years, and went back to his homework. Walking away on the legs they said would never work, using the equipment they said he'd never need, living a life they tried to steal. That's the real victory, not the convictions or the sentences, but Jacob, thriving, growing, defying every limitation they tried to place on him. They stole his equipment, but they couldn't steal his spirit. And in the end, that's what really mattered.